Hi, I'm Lisha. Welcome to Thriving Plants. Today I'm getting ready to harvest my sweet potatoes. I live in the north, so I don't wait for my vines to start dying back. As soon as I start seeing temperatures drop below 50 degrees, I go ahead and harvest them. The vines have gotten extremely large. They've also ended up blooming this year, which is great because that helps me understand that I've grown them in the right conditions. The reason that these vines bloom is because sweet potatoes aren't actually a potato. They're a member of the morning glory family. So the flowers that they get on them actually look a lot like morning glories. So I'm going to go ahead and start harvesting these, and hopefully I have a lot of them that I can store for the winter. The first thing I'm going to do before I harvest my sweet potatoes is I'm going to cut back the vines because it makes it a lot easier to harvest these. I cut them back in about 1 foot sections. And then I'm going to put these in a pile to keep for my compost since there's no diseases on them. If there had been diseases, I would have gotten rid of them. And then just continue cutting them back a little at a time. It's actually pretty easy to do since these are so fleshy. And once I get done with this, I'm going to show you how to harvest your sweet potatoes. Now that I've cut back the vines, I'm going to harvest my sweet potatoes. You always want to do this with your hands. You don't want to use a shovel because you are going to risk cutting your sweet potatoes. And if you do that, you're not going to be able to store them because they'll rot. So what you're going to do, hi, Isabel, you go help? So I'm going to pull back the mulch first. And then I'm going to go ahead and dig down in here. This is a real sandy soil, which they really like. It helps keep the sweet potatoes from rotting. See lots and lots of worms in here, and that's a great sign because it means it's nice and fertile. Sweet potatoes don't require a lot of fertility. They actually prefer that the soil isn't very fertile. So you only add fertilizer to your sweet potatoes when you first plant the slips, and after that you just leave them alone. I actually had 3 slips in this container. It's a 20-gallon container. I always use at least a 15-gallon because you don't want to crowd your plants. You won't get as many sweet potatoes and they're going to be a lot smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this back and dig down into the soil because it's nice and sandy. It's their favorite kind. Hopefully I have lots of them in here. Definitely a lot of root. And, oh, I see at least one right here coming right off of this main slip. Oh yeah, there we go. So it's a nice decent size for being in a container. I am gonna go ahead and harvest these and then I'll show you how many of them I ended up getting. And this is the first year I've actually ever grown sweet potatoes, so I'm pretty excited to see that I have at least one decent sized one, and I'm seeing other ones here. So hopefully I have a lot more and they continue to be at least this size. I just finished harvesting my sweet potatoes. I ended up with 15, about this size, a little bit larger. I would have ended up with more probably, but in my 15-gallon container, the squirrel dug up one of my slips, so I only had one. I do think they would have been a lot larger if I would have used a variety that was for a short growing season because I live in the north and I only have about 90 days up here for growing, and sweet potatoes take about 90 to 120 days to reach full size when you use the regular varieties. So if you do have any suggestions, please leave those in the comments below. I would very much appreciate it. The reason I think that's the problem is because I have all these little underdeveloped roots, but then I also ended up with a bunch that were this size. So I think if I had used a short season variety, I would have ended up with a lot more sweet potatoes. Now that I've done this, I'm going to put them through what's called a curing process. And all that means is that you're going to put these out in the sunlight till the soil dries, and you're going to brush it off. Do not wash them. If you do that, you're not going to be able to store them. And then you're going to put them in a warm, humid area for about 2 to 3 weeks to allow the skins to harden a little bit. And what it really does is it helps the sugars develop in your sweet potatoes. If you don't go through the curing process, these are going to be really bitter and hard, so you're not going to be able to eat them. I am going to do a separate video on how to go through the curing process because it does occur in steps. So after I do that, I'll put those together and I'll put out the video so you can see exactly how to do that. I'm also doing a compost video within the next couple of days. So please hit the subscribe button so you'll be able to see how I do that. I have been making compost piles for a little over 20 years. So that is something I definitely know how to do. And I'm going to plant the sweet potatoes again next year, learn from my mistakes, and hopefully end up with a lot more of them. I want to thank you for joining me. I'm a small channel, so I appreciate all of your support, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.